Imagine waking up one day to a world where the air you breathe is no longer clean, the weather has become unpredictable, and the very existence of life is under threat. Does this sound like a dystopian novel? Unfortunately, this could be our reality if we fail to address climate change. This isn't just a question of hotter summers or colder winters. It's about the very air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. It's about our homes, our health, and our future. Our planet is warming, and the consequences are far-reaching. Rising sea levels threaten to submerge coastal cities. Extreme weather events like hurricanes and droughts are becoming more frequent, and entire species are at risk of extinction. The effects of climate change are not just environmental, they are social and economic as well. It affects every aspect of our lives, from the economy to health, from agriculture to infrastructure. It's a problem that transcends borders and affects us all, regardless of who we are or where we come from. But the good news is, it's a problem we can solve. We have the knowledge, the technology, and the resources. What we need now is the will to act. In the face of such a dire reality, the world leaders convened for the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26. In November 2023, world leaders, climate activists, and concerned citizens gathered in Glasgow for the COP26. This was more than just a conference. It was a global call to action, a collective plea for the health of our planet. The COP26, or the 26th Conference of the Parties, was a pivotal moment in our fight against climate change. It was a summit that brought together representatives from nearly 200 countries, all united by a common goal, to tackle the pressing issue of global warming. At the heart of the conference was the Paris Agreement, a landmark international treaty adopted in 2015. This agreement set out an ambitious goal to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. But the path to achieving this target was fraught with challenges. Among the key issues on the agenda at the COP26 were carbon emissions trading and the cost of carbon removal. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which pertains to carbon emissions trading, was a major point of discussion. The goal was to establish transparent rules to prevent double counting and ensure progress reporting. The US Secretary of Energy announced a goal to reduce the cost of carbon removal from the atmosphere to $100 per ton by 2030. But the conference wasn't just about policy and regulation. It was also about giving a voice to those most affected by climate change. Young activists from around the world took to the streets of Glasgow, sharing personal experiences and calling for continued action and accountability from leaders. There was a sense of urgency in the air. Every decision made, every promise uttered, carried the weight of our planet's future. Climate change is not a distant threat. It's a present danger that requires immediate action. And so, in the heart of Glasgow, a city with a history as rich and complex as our planet's, the world came together to confront this existential threat. The stakes were high and the world was watching. At the heart of COP26 were the pledges and promises made by world leaders to combat climate change. This gathering of nations saw commitments to substantial change, to a future where we prioritize our planet's health over short-term gain. The summit highlighted the need to reduce carbon emissions drastically. The US Secretary of Energy, for instance, announced an ambitious goal to cut the cost of carbon removal from the atmosphere to $100 per ton by 2030. This is a big step towards a cleaner, greener future. Yet it wasn't just about reducing emissions. The transition to renewable energy was also a key focus. Leaders recognized that we cannot simply limit the damage we're doing. We must actively work towards a more sustainable world. This means investing in clean energy sources, like solar and wind, and moving away from our dependence on fossil fuels. Moreover, the conference saw a recognition of the vast inequalities that exist in the fight against climate change. Developed nations, who have historically contributed the most to global warming, pledged to support developing nations in their climate efforts. This is a crucial step towards global climate justice, acknowledging that we all share this planet and must work together to protect it. However, the conference was not without its critics. Many, including young activists like Greta Thunberg, called out the summit as a greenwash festival, emphasizing the need for new transformative methods to address the climate crisis. They stressed that the time for talk is over and the time for action is now. These pledges and promises made at COP26 represent a beacon of hope, a roadmap towards a more sustainable future. They show us what is possible when we come together, when we prioritize our planet and future generations over immediate profit. But as we know, promises are only as good as the actions that follow. Beyond the political leaders, COP26 was a platform for young climate activists from around the world. These are the voices that echo the urgency of our situation, the voices that demand more than empty promises and political jargon. They are the voices of those who will inherit the world we leave behind. At the heart of this vocal wave was Greta Thunberg, the young Swedish activist who has become a global symbol for climate action. She led a Fridays for Future demonstration, calling out the summit as a greenwash festival. Her words were a stark reminder that the world is watching and waiting for new methods to address the climate crisis. But Greta was not alone. There were other passionate speakers, each sharing personal experiences and urging for continued action and accountability from leaders. They, too, voiced their skepticism, their disappointment, and their fear. But above all, they voiced their hope for a future where we can still rectify the wrongs we've committed against our planet. These activists are not just spectators, they are participants in this global dialogue. Their presence at COP26 was a reminder that the fight against climate change is not just about international agreements and carbon trading. It's about real people, real lives, and a future that is rapidly slipping through our fingers. The activists' voices were heard by the likes of former US Vice President Al Gore, who praised their courage and commitment. Their message resonated in the halls of power, demanding the fulfillment of promises made to address the climate crisis. Yet their words were not just aimed at the leaders present at COP26. They were a call to each one of us, a reminder that we all have a role to play in this fight. Their message was not one of despair, but one of empowerment. They urged us to rise, to act, and to demand better from those in power. Their message was clear. The time for talk is over. The time for action is now. As COP26 concluded, the world was left with mixed feelings. The outcomes of the summit were as diverse as the attendees, with progress made on some fronts and challenges remaining on others. One of the key takeaways from the conference was the new goals set by the US Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm. She announced an ambitious target to reduce the cost of carbon removal from the atmosphere to $100 per ton by 2030. This commitment shines a light on the importance of carbon capture in the fight against climate change and the necessity for it to be both effective and economically viable. However, not all the news emanating from the summit was met with unanimous optimism. The International Energy Agency's assessment that global warming could be limited to 1.8 degrees Celsius by 2100 was met with caution. Analysts stressed that such an outcome would require not just pledges, but effective policies and transformative change. The negotiations on implementing Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which pertains to carbon emissions trading, were a significant part of the summit's dialogue. The aim is to establish transparent rules that prevent double counting and ensure progress reporting. This is a complex issue, and one that will continue to be a topic of debate in the climate change discourse. Former US Vice President Al Gore's words at the summit resonated with many. He praised the young activists for their efforts and emphasized the importance of keeping promises made at the summit. His sentiments echoed those of many who believe that the true measure of success for COP26 will not be in the promises made, but in the actions taken to fulfill them. In the aftermath of COP26, it's clear that the fight against climate change is far from over. The summit served as a reminder that while significant strides have been made, there is still a long way to go. The world watched as leaders made pledges and promises, but now the focus shifts to the implementation of these commitments. While COP26 was a step in the right direction, the true test of its success will be in the actions that follow. But the fight against climate change is not just for world leaders and climate activists. It involves each and every one of us. Indeed, our individual actions can wield a significant impact in combating climate change. Imagine if every person took small but consistent steps, like reducing waste, conserving energy, and opting for public transportation or carpooling when possible. Or what if we all made conscious choices to support companies that prioritize sustainability? The cumulative effect of these actions can be monumental. Additionally, we can raise our voices, use our votes, and influence policies in favor of the environment. By demanding accountability from our leaders and pushing for green initiatives, we can foster a society that is actively engaged in the fight against climate change. Let's remember, we don't need to be perfect to make a difference. We just need to start and keep going. So, what will you do? The future of our planet depends on the choices we make today. It's time to take action against climate change.